Duke Nukem 3D 20th Anniversary World Tour, aside from being a fucking mouthful, is one of the weaker ports of Duke 3D in recent memory. Unfortunately, this port is the final Duke Nukem product to be released, at least for the time being, and it's just sad how the Duke has been treated over the years. Now, don't get me wrong, I fucking love Duke Nukem 3D, but the World Tour Edition is a flawed port, and it's mainly the porting of the game that I have an issue with. The new episode bundled in called Alien World Order features a solid set of levels, as I'll be going over more today, and the big selling point is that they were created by a couple of the game's original designers. Aside from the new levels and music, composed again by Lee Jackson, this 20th Anniversary Edition feels like a half-assed attempt at a celebration, and I don't like seeing a good franchise like this end up the way that it has. World Tour repackages the Atomic Edition of the game, and the port's basic framework is based on the Xbox Live version of Duke 3D, which to be fair is a version I played the shit out of when I was younger. One of the similarities between World Tour and the Xbox Live Arcade Edition is the rewind feature, which does take most of the difficulty out of the game, but I personally don't mind it. I mean, it's not as if they completely removed the ability to save, and for newcomers to the Duke Nukem games, this could be considered a welcomed feature. There's also a developer commentary option, where you can listen to several employees that worked on the original game and this port specifically talk about each level. Even though I appreciate this feature and the way that you can turn these microphone buttons on and off in-game is cool, I wish that there was some way to unlock all of the developer commentary from the menus, just to listen to it all at once without the hassle of going into individual levels. The new lighting renderer is a nice bonus as well, and I like that it makes the flat 2D textures and skybox pop a little bit more, especially on the new levels. That all being said, this World Tour Edition suffers from terrible mouse controls, with it feeling so unpolished for some reason. Duke Nukem 3D had perfect controls. Of course when you get a source port of the game up and running, but still, I have absolutely no complaints with it. So how the fuck did Gearbox mess the mouse movement up? I can't really describe how bad it feels to control the mouse, but this port definitely feels like it's meant to be played with a controller rather than a traditional PC setup. Now I love the idea of them re-releasing Duke Nukem on next-gen systems and giving fans and newcomers a convenient way to experience this classic game, but make it control halfway decent first. This might sound like pointless nitpicking, but one of the best qualities about retro first-person shooters is their fast, fluid movement and how perfect they control. It's like if id Software made a remaster of Quake, but then they made the mouse aiming all jittery and shit. It would drive you fucking nuts. Oh, and the way that you cycle through weapons feels extremely tedious and slow compared to the original. The time it takes Duke to switch weapons is delayed for some reason. Maybe it's due to the weapon roster graphic that pops up on screen, but regardless, it's an issue that I can't stand. This game is fast, and sometimes you'll be in the middle of a fight and you need to switch weapons quickly, but with this delayed weapon cycling problem, you can't. Duke Nukem 3D deserves better treatment than this, but at least the new episode is pretty damn good. The first level, called High Times, is set in Amsterdam, which is the perfect place to kick off this new episode. I like the opening area with the two bridges connecting a series of alleyways together, and the way that you go underwater to pick up the Devastator is great. The player acquires one of the keycards from the Red Light District, which is such a Duke Nukem location. However, the main attraction is the Little Green Man coffee shop, and it has some interesting quirks about it. I love the vibrant color palette, for example, and when you go into the VIP area and hit the switch, the entire room just turns green. This level also introduces the new Firefly enemy, and I find these to be a pretty cool yet unremarkable enemy type. The arena that they spawn in is actually quite difficult, and it kinda gives new players a smack in the mouth with the Firefly and Battlelord placements. On top of the tough enemies that spawn, the area pulls off the same gimmick as Lunatic Fringe, where the player is teleported around the place when you walk around this water fountain here. Apart from this final combat encounter, High Times is a fairly easy and run-of-the-mill Duke Nukem 3D level, and it's a good introduction to the episode. Red Ruckus is located in Russia, and the player starts out in this warehouse. I like the inclusion of the turrets mounted on the ceilings, as it keeps you on your toes straight away. From there you can explore the Russian streets, take an elevator up to a hotel, and go inside a little supermarket interior. I love this section of the level, and as a whole, I prefer the more city-based locations in Duke Nukem 3D. As the level goes on, you enter this Russian bunker of sorts, and the combat encounters get much tougher. The level designers start throwing mini overlords at you, and at the end of the level, you have to fight 2 overlords as well as a Battlelord for good measure. Even though I believe that the underground bunker aesthetic looks a little stale compared to the streets of Russia, the combat encounters definitely make up for it. The player travels to London next, and this level is fine, but not much about it sticks out. However, I like how you go inside the TARDIS and end up in a completely different area than before. Also, the battle with the Cycloid Emperor is nice and challenging, especially with how you can easily get caught by the splash damage of his rockets. While Bloody Hell is a solid level on its own, it is probably the weakest of the episode. Mirage Barrage is so much fun and packs in quite a few excellent pop culture references. Set in Egypt, this level features a cameo from Stereo Sam, and we also find out that the 5th element is Duke Nukem, of course. From a level design perspective as well, this map is very good. The way that you start out in this desert maze, then you blow a hole into the pyramid and do all of these puzzles to activate the 4 elements. It's all great stuff. There's a good sense of progression in this level, and I love the appearance of the protector drones, as they are quite underused in this episode. E5M4 ends with the player in a spaceship, and this is where you can access the secret level. Prima Arena, I don't know, centers around a simple idea, but it's executed perfectly. There's a Battlelord up on a podium in the middle of an arena, and it's up to you to kill it, obviously. You can skirt around the arena to collect ammo and stock up on other supplies to deal with the Battlelord, and this level just works. It's not mind-blowing by any means, and it's not a level I would want to consistently replay, but it's good enough as a fun experimental secret map. Level 5 is called End of DUKE NUKEM, and if you couldn't guess already, this one is set in France. The first half reminds me of Red Ruckus, with the player walking through street corners, but there's still a lot more enjoyment to be had. There's one combat encounter that comes to mind, where if you hop across into this area, you will be ambushed by monsters, and the door that you came from closes for good behind you. You will most likely be killed, and you are forced to create some sort of strategy for this battle. There is a safer way to approach this combat encounter, as you can go through the vents and have a better vantage point. It's awesome having multiple ways to go about fighting this group of enemies. You can either gut it out or strategize your plan of attack. The second half of the level is set in a train station, it seems like, one that has been totally fucking obliterated. I like the somewhat dickish placement of the assault commanders and the group of Octobrains coming after the player. Golden Carnage is the penultimate level of the episode, and it certainly feels like it. They pulled out all the stops with this level, and while it's personally not my favorite, I can't deny the quality on display. Golden Carnage is big, it's open, and there's plenty of action. Oh, and the way that you destroy a Battlelord using the submarine turrets is fucking awesome. The final level of episode 5 is short, but that's not really disappointing to me. Golden Carnage was the big epic level, while Hollywood Inferno is more in line with Stadium than anything else. I like that the final showdown is located in LA and that you can destroy parts of the Hollywood sign, but the boss itself is pretty mediocre. It's whatever, I don't really expect too much from first-person shooter bosses, but the Cycloid Incinerator is the least threatening enemy in the game. He tries to use his incinerator weapon like it's a long-ranged attack, but it's not, so you can easily avoid it. That being said, Alien World Order is a fantastic little expansion of the campaign, and I love how it's just 8 levels. It doesn't overstay its welcome at all, and the levels are decently sized anyway. The incinerator weapon is fun to use as well, and I completely underestimated it when I first played this port. The fire projectiles arc over like the rocks from Friday the 13th, but on the plus side, it disables enemies from attacking you, which is such a useful effect. Even with this great new episode, Duke Nukem 3D World Tour is a bit of a letdown, and it's probably going to mark the end of the Duke Nukem game series for the time being. Gearbox have made it pretty fucking clear that they want to wash their hands clean of Duke Nukem. They're only going to use him for little cameos like the Bulletstorm remaster, or they're just going to release Duke 3D again and again. After Duke Nukem Forever, the chance of a new Duke Nukem game from Gearbox being released is unlikely, and it seems like making another Duke game is high risk, low reward. I mean, let's imagine that there is another Duke Nukem game coming out. There's so much Gearbox has to get right that there's almost no point in doing it. If they made another Duke game, my main concern wouldn't even be the actual gameplay or anything, it would be the tone that the game sets. Duke 3D was silly at times, but it wasn't a full-blown parody like Duke Nukem Forever was. Duke 3D featured grimy, seedy locations, and while yeah, it did have its more comic moments, the game felt more like a John Carpenter movie than whatever the fuck Duke Nukem was trying to be. Anyway, I don't have hope for this franchise, and if Duke Nukem Forever was released in the 90s like it was originally supposed to, perhaps we would have seen a brighter future for the Duke Nukem series. For right now though, with the exception of little re-releases and cameos here and there, we have basically arrived at the death or the end of the Duke Nukem franchise. Fuck.